Welcome to the Ion Annapolis Local Business Spotlight. There are thousands of locally owned businesses in the area, some small and some large. Some you may know and others you don't. But one thing they all have in common is a great story, and we want to share it with you. Join us every Saturday as we talk to the founders, the owners, and the managers of local businesses you have come to know and love, and those you will come to know and love. Now here's your host, John Frenay, with this week's Local Business Spotlight.
I gotta say, I've probably never been in a tattoo parlor before, or a tattoo business. We're here with Parry Chotipradit, who is the owner of Lucky Bird Tattoo right here on Riva Road. How are you doing, Parry?
Good, John. How are you?
Good. Hey, thank you for inviting me in on a Sunday afternoon. And, probably because of my own fears, and I don't like pain or anything like that. It's a good thing because you're not open on Sundays,
yeah.
so I can escape out of here. But
no tattoos, just talking.
But we wanted just to sit there. We're talking about local businesses in Arundel County, and pass by here. I can't even tell you how many thousands of times, and wanted to find out about Lucky Bird Tattoo. First of all, the website is Lucky Bird Tattoo. Makes it real easy.
Yeah.
.com. And but how did this all start? How did you start business here?
This December will be 13 years ago that we opened. At the time, tattooing felt very different than it is now. It was more quote unquote street shop kind of thing where you'd walk in and you'd pick off the wall the designs.
Yeah. I'll take a little more 3B.
Exactly. It was a little old school kind of thing like that. And at the time, that's just what it was. And there's plenty of shops that still do that, and nothing against whatever, different people for different things. But me personally, I was more interested in the custom side of it.
Do they have, I mean, you mentioned that just sort of off-the-shelf designs. Is there an industry that provides off-the-shelf designs?
It's actually, so back then, it's usually there were some companies that did that were just a company. One, Cherry Creek was one that I think they had a team of artists that kind of would just pump out designs and they'd put them out to all the tattoo artists. But then you'd have artists that were kind of the bigger names that would draw their own too, and again, get them out to all the suppliers and whatnot.
Interesting. Well, how did you get in to being a tattoo artist?
Originally, if you would have asked me growing up, I had no intention or even thought I would get into something like this, to be honest. At the time, to flashback 20-some years ago, I was working. I played in a band, so I loved music, and I was out of high school and just kind of had regular jobs. I worked restaurants for
ever.
Yeah. Since I was 14, it was probably 8-10 years of restaurant work. Did that, and I always had two jobs. At the time, I had a morning job and then a night job. And at the time, I was looking for a night job. I needed one, and I was getting tattooed at the time just from being in a band, and kind of got to know the shop a bit, and went out and just happened to ask them, like, hey, do you guys have any work I can do? And at the time, they had me cleaning gutters and doing things that no one wanted to do. And they threw me a couple bucks, and that kind of turned into, they called me a shop boy, just a shop helper, a receptionist, cleaner, whatever they needed. And they ended up probably were like, hey, what's up with that kid that will clean our gutters and do everything for $20? So they asked if I was interested in a part-time job there at night, and it was right across the street from a restaurant I worked at.
Oh, nice.
So I'd literally get off, walk over, change, and I'd work there. And that's originally how I just started working in a tattoo shop. And again, at the time, I had no intention on getting into tattooing. It was a job, and it was awesome. It was way easier than standing over in a hot grill.
Right.
I thought it was really cool. I liked getting tattooed, and I just kind of started that way, and then it slowly evolved.
Well, I'm looking at the artwork on the walls in your studio here, and I mean, how does somebody train to be a tattoo artist? And I will say that, I purposely use the words artwork and a tattoo artist because, what you're doing is true art.
Thank you.
Are you trained as an artist?
If you're speaking of school-wise, no, I never went to art school or anything. But there's so much you can do to train yourself. You don't necessarily have to have art school background.
Sure. You don't have to.
Then nothing wrong against it. It's great things. But I think the real thing is if you have enough passion for something, whether you're in art school or not, or college or not, or whatever it might be, whatever your passion is, if you have enough passion to just obsess over it and basically do something a million times over and over and over and fail at it until you finally get good. And the only way you can do that is if you care about something enough, if you have enough passion about something enough, if you're in it for that reason, you'll get great at it. So for me, again, to back up with the story, I was working in a tattoo shop. I liked getting tattooed, and then getting to kind of see that behind the scenes of it a little. I really fell in love with what the artists were doing, and it kind of captured me. And one of the guys working at the time kind of planted the seed a little bit, like, you ever think about this? Because he'd see me doodle a little here and there, and I'm like, no way, man. Like, that's so intimidating. To tattoo someone is very intimidating.
I imagine.
Especially in the beginning, where it's just like, this isn't paper you can't erase. This is permanent. People are bleeding, they move. Like, it's really scary. So I'm like, no way, but once it kind of got in my head, you're like, I don't know, maybe, and again, it wasn't like the art you see now where I'm drawing 3-foot drawings for someone's whole body. These were just getting it off the wall. So eventually you start thinking, maybe I could do that, like maybe I could take some of these little ones and learn how to physically apply it.
Draw the red heart with the mom in the middle.
Right, and learn that medium and those tools, just like if you went from color pencil to paintbrush, it's different, or to airbrush or something, it's a different tool, a different medium. So, once that kind of got going and I start thinking, I kind of just started applying myself more in that shop where I would get people's line drawings, and line drawings are if you have the sketch and then you do the final line for it that you make the stencil to apply on someone. So I started doing things like that for the artist and basically making their job easier, but it was giving me opportunity to kind of learn and draw. And that kind of gave me a little more confidence here and there, a little more, and start drawing things. People would want to add something to a picture, and I'd draw it for the artist, and they'd kind of be like, yes or no. If no, hey, your letters are too close, or something like that. And so it kind of just naturally built a little like that until I had a little more of the confidence of proposing, looking for an apprenticeship with the shop, and they kind of were like, we'll give you a chance to have a chance type thing. And, I'm pretty driven once it's that, and it's like, all right, that's the goal. So I just, from that day on, just really tried and studied everything, if it's like, okay, how do I, at the time, something common or whatever, how do you draw a rose? How do you draw lettering? And I would just focus on something and just draw it different ways, and then just kept kind of doing that, just being your own school, what needs to be learned. And those were the basic things of tattooing. And then, as you tattoo and go along, you start to get into more and more the art side. And I think that's kind of what separates an artist a bit more from like kind of a quote unquote tattooer and a tattoo artist. I feel is a big difference.
How'd you make the jump from cleaning the gutters at a tattoo parlor to owning your own tattoo studio?
Well, it's never a big jump. It's, looking back, it's always these kind of gradual little steps that happen. And again, I never even thought about owning a tattoo shop, just like I never thought about tattooing in the beginning. You just kind of set these little goals. I want to be able to draw this rose. I want to be able to draw a face. I want to get into anatomy a little. And you set these little goals, and when you reach them, if you have passion, you kind of always set a new little goal without realizing. And years of doing that, all of a sudden you're doing things you never thought was possible on an art level. But then also on the business level, you go from just doing walk-ins in kind of a street shop, doing whatever, little things someone picked off the wall type thing, to starting to design and get people interested in what you do. And fortunately for myself, I have a pretty unique style, so people started recognizing, like, oh, that looks like that guy Parry, And that was a slow thing that took a lot of years to build up. And in the beginning, someone might have you, if I would someone wants something off the wall, and you'd be like, hey, I'll draw you one so it's custom. And people are like, okay. And then half the time it'd get shot down, like, oh, maybe it's too much, too cartoony or too this or whatever. But slowly you earn that trust in that with clients, and then you do the best tattoo you can. At the time, social media stuff was just kind of coming out with MySpace, stuff like that. And I would put pictures up and promote, and it was a slow process of people kind of saying, hey, I want a mermaid, but I like the way you did that one, and it was something really in my style. And then you just take that opportunity to do the best you can and push it. And over the years, that crowd became bigger and bigger, and that my clientele became bigger, and it allowed me to.
Well, it's interesting because I looked through your website, and you've talked about your different style and everything else. I noticed that, like, with a lot of the artist bios and whatnot, they're saying call for an appointment or call for a discussion,
consultation,
about what you want, a consultation. And I imagine that everybody, you said you have a particular style. I mean, if I knew tattoos, I'd probably walk down the street and go, "Oh, that must be a Parry,"
right.
Type of a thing. I mean, it's like a painting.
Right, absolutely.
So each tattoo artist has their own style to a degree. I mean, obviously there's a lot of overlap, and then they obviously all can probably do the real basic, the heart with the mom and it. But I know there was one that was like, okay, this. I think it was a guest artist that specializes in bold, bright colors as opposed to more subdued and stuff. So, I mean, is that really, are you really qualifying your clients as they come in to find out what?
Yeah, these days, again, everyone's capable of multiple things. I think if you've tattooed for that amount of time, it's impossible not to, at least somewhat, because you have to start small. Right. You do start with the smaller things, the lettering and stuff like that. But all those things build up, that bag of tricks, and you learn these little styles, and all those little things go into creating your own style. If you're pushing to be better and better and not get tunnel vision on, okay, this is just what I do. So yeah, as far as here at Lucky Bird, and that's something I've always been proud of and I've wanted from the beginning, and again, took many years to build that, but to have artists that really specialize in different things. Because if you'd come to someone that's for that style and you say, I want this, again, a mermaid, but I want it in this animated, illustrated, new school kind of style. And it's like, oh, well, we got a couple guys that's what they do. If you want that mermaid in like a American traditional style, oh, we got guys that do that too. And again, if you're doing that, it's kind of like going to a mechanic, a garage or something. And it's like, if they had, that's not my world, but in my little, in my head, the way I kind of picture it, if you went to a garage and it was like, oh, here's this mechanic that specializes in Volkswagen, and here's your Honda guy or whatever. Right. And they're both there and you have a Honda. It's like, well, why would we pair you with the Volkswagen guy? This is what this guy really does, So that was always kind of the goal, because I also understand, like, having a style that is pretty specific, it's not for everyone, and that's totally cool. That's great. It's just like music. There's different genres for a reason. It speaks to different people. So to have different people we can kind of push you to is really awesome. And so a lot of times people come in, and again, it took a long time to kind of build that and get that to just people to understand, especially at the time of opening, 13 years ago, where people were confused by a custom shop, because that's what wasn't how shops work. People were really confused. I'll get back into that so I don't go off too far, but back to the artist thing, by having different ones, I just think it allows really great things, and every style is not for everyone. So the quality is there. Now, who do we give you the best match to be is really the goal here.
Do you find most of your clients are repeat for you? I mean, if I'm getting a tattoo and I say, man, I love the Parry style. Right. I mean, am I over my lifetime coming back to you time and time again, or am I mixing it up?
Yeah, to be honest, man, I'm really lucky and fortunate in that sense. I tattoo a lot of the same people. I've tattooed people for, gosh, man, some from within my first year of the career, oh, wow. 18 years ago, or, I have clients I've tattooed 15 years, and then that turns into, it's like, oh, I tattoo their wife and their kids, and next thing you know. But yeah, a lot of people, especially working on large scale things like you see around, if I start someone's whole leg or their whole back, a bodysuit type thing, I end up tattooing them once a month until we're done the project. That's kind of one of the little things. And I can't tell you how many times I finish one and they go, I'd love to get my other leg. Would you be willing? And I'm like, absolutely, man. I loved working with you. It was a great time. And they like what I do. I know what they like. And I tend to have a ton of repeat clients, which is really awesome. Some of them have become best friends of mine. I mean, you sit next to someone one-on-one for hours and hours once a month for years. It's like, man,
you really get to know
people. Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Does it piss you off when somebody comes in with somebody else's work?
A client of mine?
Well, yeah.
No, not at all. Not at all, actually, man. Most of them, I have clients, and we share clients within the shop too, because there's times, if I'll be tattooing someone and I'm doing a real illustrated thing, and say they're like, I wanted to get a really nice black and gray portrait. And it's like, oh man, you got to see Rod Diaz, like it's what he does, right? So we definitely share people. We have a lot of clients that do that, and I've never been one of those people that feel you own somebody, because there are a lot of artists that kind of get like that, where they get a little
territorial. I would think so.
Right. I think it comes out of a bit of insecurity of like, oh, I don't want to lose my business to this other artist. But again, if you have your distinct thing and your style and you're good at it, they're going to come to you for that. Just like I go to different artists for different style things, because why am I going to go? I'm not going to go to the portrait guy if I want a bold traditional American tattoo. Right. So I sure don't care at all. If anything, I'd rather help them out and tell them like, hey, this artist is really great at this, and kind of just make sure they're getting in at that level of work.
Right. Why do most people get tattoos? Is there a reason? I mean, way back when, it was the sailors in port, and it was some bikers, and I mean that's totally upended now.
Right. It's such a different thing, and those people still do get them.
Sure.
But yeah, in the beginning, it definitely was more that, and even like I said, the first shop I worked at, the owner was a biker guy. They still smoked cigarettes in there. It was it's funny to look back, because it's like, God, man, like I remember I don't smoke, so I'd come home every night and like have to shower. I just felt gross, but it's what it was at the time. And again, I think people in my generation and a few of the greats that really pushed it, the generation before me, it was artists kind of got a hold of it, so it slowly has become more of an art thing than just picking off the wall. But why people get it, everyone's going to have their own reasons. I think to like be as general and basic answer, it all starts off at one point we think it looks cool.
Fair.
That's gotta be, if you didn't think it looked cool, you probably wouldn't be interested at all. But it gets deeper than that too. That might just be that beginning thing, just like if you hear a genre of music that you just like, I don't know what genre it is, but that sounds cool. I like it,
Makes sense.
So that's probably what gets you interested at first, but we do so many tattoos of different kinds. I've had people that told me it's been life-changing because it changed. They had body issues or have been abused, and they felt like the body wasn't theirs. And I covered some scars from past abuse. And they said, they went from, I would see that, and she's become a great friend since, but before I never saw her without a long sleeve shirt on, and it wouldn't show skin much. And she was terrified to even just like come in with a short sleeve shirt when I first started, because she had so much abuse stuff. At one point, she just felt like it wasn't her body. But by tattooing it, it kind of turned it into hers and covered the old and made it new. And now I never see her without a shirt that's not showing her arms and her chest, because she's like, feels like it's her body now.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that's just like, man, you think you're just drawing pictures for people, but
there's a little side perk of the job that you had no idea.
Oh man, it's unbelievable that you could even have that effect with drawing, But yeah, so things like that happen, and sometimes even, and I've been through it myself. If you're going through something hard in life, I've noticed I tend to get tattooed a lot more in that time. And I think it's almost that thing like how maybe if a woman is going through something, they go, I want to get my hair cut. It was long, and they're like, I'm cutting it short, I'm dyeing it, and you feel kind of like a little bit of a new person, because you kind of took control over your body and what you were doing. So you get things like that. Sometimes they're in memory of people or things that someone looks at it and they just.
It's important to life. I've got a good friend of mine that spent his career in radio.
Right.
And he and his wife actually were both in radio, and they just had on their forearm, they just had a little insert on a 45 record.
Yeah.
You know, that little, just very, very simple. Not, so I mean, I see that.
Yeah, there's little things, all the way to sometimes you see people get the initials as a wedding ring, because I've had people, they work jobs they can't wear a ring. So I mean, it can go so many different ways. But again, man, I think with all that said, there is that part that you just like, there's kind of a cool factor to it that you like it. Sometimes it makes you feel more secure. Sometimes, there can be a million reasons, but in a day, I mean, it's cool looking and it has meaning, which is
it really is. And I'll tell you, I think that society has really sort of changed their outlook on this. And I don't even think that. I mean, that.
Yeah.
I remember when my daughter got her first tattoo, it was, she said, I just want to get a little small giraffe on my upper thigh. And it was like much more than smaller. And it was kind of on the whole thigh.
That's how she sold you on it.
And it was like, I was like, are you kidding me? And I mean, at that time she worked at Panera over in Edgewater, and she had a nose ring. The septum. And they were like, yeah, no, you can't wear that. You've got to flip that up and everything else. That was before the tattoo. But, it used to be the cops, if they had tattoos, they had to wear the long sleeves. Right. And if they had something that would show up, there were turtlenecks. Right. It looked really weird. At 104 degrees, and there's a cop in a long sleeve turtleneck coming up to give you a ticket. But I think that the workforce has, and we probably haven't gotten to the Mike Tyson thing where they're on the face yet, acceptable. But the fact that, you would think to go into a bank and for the ones that have tellers still, you would never think that there may be a teller handing you cash or taking your check over a counter with a tattoo. Right.
A visible one at least.
And now it's just, and I mean, I love the one commercial they have where there's some doctor, he's bald and he's pretty much got full sleeves, the whole 9 yards. And it's like, yeah, would you trust this guy with your life? And he looks pretty frightening. He says, you put the white coat and the stethoscope and says, how about now? And, so I think it's very cool that society has changed and workforces have changed to be able to do that. I mean, obviously there's some, profanity and stuff like that that's probably going on.
Right. What you're going to put on.
In taste. I mean, you're not going to hang, in today's film, if you're not a mechanic, you're not going to be hanging, the Playboy centerfolds. Just
but
any
it used
general
to be,
office,
Right. Just like you're not walking here and people smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I tell you, are there any demographics? I mean, is it pretty much everybody? I mean, more men, more women, more.
These days, no, I feel it's really equal. Before it definitely felt like probably a little more of a male thing, and women definitely were getting them too. But I'll say there used to be, I feel there was a difference of, I can speak from my time, if you go before, definitely more male before, but within the last 20 some years, it was like, I noticed more males getting maybe larger things in more visible areas like full arm sleeves or things just lower down on the forearm or something like that. And maybe I'd see women get more things that were hidden, like kind of lower backs or smaller kind of areas you could hide a little more. And again, not everyone, obviously, but that was kind of the beginning for tattooing me. I kind of noticed that more. And over the years, you definitely have noticed more women now just getting the full sleeves too and the full leg. They're doing things too and not so worried about, I guess, fitting into whatever restraints probably they felt at one point maybe did. I don't know. I'm not a woman.
Why should they?
But I've noticed that as far as in trend, there's no real stereotype with that now as far as who gets what and men or women. Kind of get people of all ages.
Are most artists male?
These days, I'd say there's probably still more, but it definitely isn't like before. There's plenty of women artists too.
This is one industry that really has tumbled and turned around, and I don't even say reinvented because that makes it sound like it was dying or something like that, but it has totally focused what they're doing.
Yeah, it's a whole different world, and like I said, it's funny to kind of reminisce on it because you think 20 years ago what it was, and it's just such a slow changing thing, like someone getting older, your kid getting older, until you see a picture and you're like, man, that's what it was. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's changed so much. Like you said, it kind of went from the bikers and stuff like that to artists having it, and it being a woman, being a guy, whatever. Now it's about the art.
Well, you just look at the way the industry has grown, and I mean, 20 years ago, you'd probably have to travel a little bit to find a tattoo shop.
Yeah. It kind of seemed like there's one in. No,
I don't
definitely travel to find like a great tattooer as well, and it's like, all right, here's a shop, but it's like at that time you'd be going to.
Well, you guys are very much like hairstylists, I think, in that degree. I mean, for women, okay, men are not quite as married to married to who cuts their hair as women are, but I mean, it's like, yeah, I need to have Mary cut my hair. Oh, well, she's on vacation. Okay, fine, I'm not getting my hair cut.
Yeah, Yeah, when you find an artist or multiple artists that you trust, that you like their work, what they do, and you like them as a person, you feel comfortable and you're confident in that relationship, then it's worth waiting. Yeah, very much like that. Like, yeah. I have one guy that cuts my hair. Luckily it's the barber next door, Johnny at George's. Yeah. And that's for 13 years since I opened this place. I started going there.
I do as well. I mean, I like Sam down at Capitol Barbershop, but I mean, if it's too busy and I'll go to his assistant. Right. He does a good job too, but
it is permanent. So yeah, it's there's a real trust. I think tattoo artists can kind of forget that at times because this is what we do all day. People that come in are really trusting you. Not just as a studio, as a business, but then the artist are really trusting to do this well.
Did you ever screw up?
Everyone does at some point. Now, like anything, are you able to flip that around and make it how it needs to be? Again, done it for a long time now, so you're quicker with those little things when someone might move on you or something like that, where at the beginning you're maybe not quite as aware of someone's little body movements and stuff the way people are. But yeah, I mean, like anything, you got to be able to roll with it and make it good.
Now, most of all this is all done off of drawings. I mean,
my personal tattoos.
I mean, for pretty much anybody, I guess at this point, I mean, it's either a stock drawing that somebody is made for a shop that would do something like that, mm-hmm. or a client comes in and says, "Hey, this is my idea." Then do you put it to paper?
Right.
Or to CAD or whatever it may be.
Again, every tattoo shops, it's like any industry. There's different levels to it, just like restaurants or whatever. You can go to Outback if you want, and you'll get a decent steak, or you go to Ruth's Chris, or,
a little better one, right?
Right, you can go. So there's like everything. There's different levels of it, and there's some shops, and I'll never say names or try to throw anyone on a bus, but there's some that I think the art's not as important, and it's just kind of, let's get people in and out and make money, and they'll probably make way more money than I ever will. But again, what I wanted was the pride of being able to draw something for someone and give them a one-off piece, which is really awesome. And it's always kind of what I envisioned once I kind of got through those first few years and really just fell in love with that. And so, some shops that have the flash on the walls to pick from, but now with the internet, a lot of people, you're always going to have the people that aren't as capable of the drawing side, right, that are going to go on Google and take an image and trace it. I mean, people have done that since the beginning of time, kind of copying art, right, whether you're getting into Renaissance paintings. There's people, there's always been somebody, if they're not as capable, they're going to find a way to try to appear to be and get the business out of it. So there's places that do that too. And, again, when I opened Lucky Bird at that time, I remember opening and friends and people telling me like, man, you really should hang up some flash on the wall so people have something to pick from. And I was just stern. I was like, no, I really don't want to be that type of shop. I have this idea of a custom thing, because again, there's those handful of people that inspired me that aren't even local. They live around the country that, you know, at the time I'm looking at magazines going, this is so cool. These are their drawings. These aren't, and I wanted that, you know.
Well, I got to think that if I'm coming in looking, you know, as somebody that does not have tattoos, the first time, you know, customer, as with almost anything, I mean, I don't know what's possible.
Right.
And, you know, if I'm faced with this wall of...
Gives you options.
Of you know, oh, you know what, that B3 looks pretty good.
Right.
And, oh, wait, no, look, G14 is, you know, and you
right.
sit there and go that, but then without knowing what's in your mind.
Right.
And how you say, you know, and I say, hey, I really like B, for, you know, the B and the G. And you say, well, you know, we could do something, you know, it just opens up a whole world. You don't know what you don't know. And that's where I think the beauty of a custom work is.
Right. And again, it's funny, when I first opened, you know, people are telling me, you should do that, you should do that. And I didn't want to, but it was weird and a little discouraging. I would open, and again, I was pretty much a one-man shop those first couple of years, you know. So I was the guy answering the phone and greeting people as well. And people would come in, and they were so used to shops that have been around before that you walk in and every inch of the wall is covered with designs to pick from. And they would walk in and kind of look around, and I just had paintings and stuff up, you know, just art on the walls, more gallery-like. And, you know, I remember one customer in particular, hey, do you have any books I can look at? And I say, sure. And I hand them my portfolio of past work just so you can see what I've done. And which now sounds quite normal. People don't think about it, but at the time, you know, and he looks, I remember he flips through a couple pages and you see him kind of like a little confused looking, and he's like, no, do you have any books with designs I can pick from? And I go, oh, well, you know, we're a custom shop. We can do a console, and then I'll go over your ideas and I'll draw something that's one of a kind for you. And he just looked at me kind of blank stare, and it's like, so you don't have any books? right. And I go, well, no, but I'll draw you something. And he just goes, okay. And he just left. And I remember being like, seemed like it's like, I'm trying to help you. Like, I want to give you this custom thing that's one of a kind for you that fits your body and your idea. And they just didn't want any part of it, because at the time, it wasn't how it worked, you know? So I thought about that scenario multiple times, and I kind of thought, and I'll refer food stuff a lot because I worked at restaurants so long, but it's almost like at the time, like if you walked into a restaurant and you're like, do you have a menu? And they're like, well, just tell us what you want, you know? And they're like, I need to pick something off the menu. We're so trained. Like you said, you walk in, you go, okay, well, that's kind of cool. I can like that. Just like you walk into a store to get clothes and you go, yeah, I'll wear that, you know, because it's there. It's like, here's your options, you know. And so people were kind of confused by that. And it took years to build that. And people kept being like, you should just put some. And I'm like, no, I don't want to, you know, I want to do it this way.
Good for you, sticking to your guns.
Yeah, you know, and there's times you're tempted where stuff like that keeps happening, or things like to do a custom one, I had to do a consultation. I needed to talk to you. I needed to measure that body part out and talk to you about your idea. So people were very used to kind of just walking in, going, hey, let's get a tattoo. And you walk in and you got it. And then to come or call or come to the shop, and then I go, well, I can book you a consultation. Let's book a consultation. We'll talk about it. And then you can put down a deposit the whole time. And then we'll book a date. And they're kind of like, so you want me to come in and not get tattooed, you know, or you want me to put a deposit down and not get tattooed? And people being like, I don't know, man. Like, and people just didn't get it because it just wasn't how it was. So, you know, and I'm not claiming to be the first in the world to do this, but it sure seemed at that time we were definitely, if not the first one, or the first that really were doing things that way. And it took a while to kind of educate people and get people used to that. Because at first, you know, I remember training the front counter staff where people are going to ask these questions and they're going to say, well, can I just do it now or this? And I had to train them to how to answer those things and explain to them and educate people. Well, we're going to do a consultation. We got to measure it. We're going to draw it. where now people call, they know that's how we work, and they just go, hey, I'd like to set up a consultation, like,
boom,
and
done.
Put down a deposit. And so, yeah, it was cool to see that grow over the years from people just seeming really confused at first by it, but now they get it. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And and they'll say, hey, yeah, I will wait months. I know I want this place to do it. I want Lucky Bird to do it. I want this artist to do it. And then our job, put our best into the drawings and follow through and give them the best experience in tattoo
awesome.
we can.
Well, obviously you do tattoos here. That's I'm guessing the lion's share of your business, but you also do piercings and stuff like that as well.
We do piercings.
Microblading, which is what, eyebrows and...
Yeah, it's a semi-permanent eyebrow.
Okay. And then someone there, PMU on the...
Yeah, the permanent makeup stuff that falls right under that as well. And we have an artist, Kendall Kramer, that does all the microblading and PMU stuff,
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And that's kind of been, not new. It's been a handful of years now, but our newest of what we offer to people, which is really cool. And you get a whole different demographic in here with that.
Are there any tattoos that you won't do?
None of us are going to do anything.
I mean, there's some of the obvious ones. I mean,
racist or anything negative like that. I mean, we're all good, loving people here. Yeah. We don't need any part of that. No, Lucky Bird. That was always been the thing. I wanted the shop to be well respected for our abilities and the quality, and whether large scale or if it's something small. I also never wanted to be that shop that was kind of snooty or snobby, like, oh, you just want a name, like we're too good for that, because that's just important to people too. I mean, I have little things like I have my son's name on me. Sure. So at one point it's like, hey, I just want to get these 3 letters, but it's a very important tattoo to me. I mean, they're not always all going to be that huge and extravagant, but it's all important. So, as long as people are kind of willing to wait a little bit, when we're happy to get people in and make sure they get a good job, because people confuse sometimes that small means it's easy, and it's quite opposite at times. And it's a whole different world. And don't get me wrong, tattooing a few letters is definitely easier than a full back piece or something. But as far as applying it, you still have to be a good tattooer to do it good. And if you have shaky lines, it's even more apparent on something really small. There's nothing else to hide it from. Sure. So sometimes people kind of think, oh, I'm just getting this, I'll have anyone do it. And then they come in like, man, I got these and it looks horrible. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, you should just wait a month or two to get it done right, even if it's small.
Where did Lucky Bird come from?
The name?
Yeah.
At the time, I wish I had kind of a cooler story, but at the time, again, this is in the beginning of my tattoo career. I was drawing a lot of birds. I was just into drawing birds at the time. And my brother happened to live in San Diego at the time. And I went out there. I would go out there for the weekends. And the first time I went out there, I was like, damn, this place is beautiful. This is awesome here. And I just kind of daydreaming. I told my brother, because he draws a little too. And at the time, I was daydreaming. Man, I got to move out here with you. We'll just open a shop. And I just splurted. I was like, I'll teach you how to tattoo. We'll call it Lucky Bird. And it was a pipe dream. I was in no position to even think about opening a shop or even teach someone for that matter. But we were just daydreaming. And when I said that, and then fast forward years and years later, and I am going to open a shop, I'm kind of searching for a name. And when I'm looking for a name, I'm big into music. I play guitar, and I'm listening.
As you sit across with your Gibson shirt?
Yeah, of course. I'm listening to albums and title names and stuff, thinking maybe I could kind of steal a little lyric of something, of a cool band name, or a cool song name or whatever to make as a shop name. And I kept kind of, or one I'd like, but I'd hear another shop name that, you Google, look for if anywhere else. And in the meantime, I'm creating the whole back end of this thing, and I got to get licensed and all the paperwork side done, the business side, and you have to have a name on there. And it was kind of like, I kept coming back to Lucky Bird. That it just, I remember saying it before, and I just kind of kept coming back to it, and I kept pushing it away, like, oh, that was just, running my mouth at the time, and it's like,
I probably should do it.
It's kind of sticking with me, and there was no other shop named it. The website was available, and it just seemed easy to say and remember, and it didn't feel like it was dark and like scary sounding, because it's not who we are. I mean, you see the walls are bright in here. It's a very welcoming type place, and it just kind of was like, yeah, screw it, man. Lucky Bird sounds good. It works. So that's what I put on. I had to put for license and whatnot, and I just kind of.
That's awesome.
That was it,
That's awesome. What's the most challenging tattoo for you to do? I mean, is it a particular body part, or is it a particular type of artwork, or the?
At this point, they're all challenging. They're all going to be as challenging as you make it. But as far as stylistically or different things, I'm fine. I feel fine, confident, tattoo
anywhere.
Many things. Again, there's times if we'll push someone that really specializes in that. But coming up, when I came up, there wasn't a such thing as like, this is my style to do. Like, we weren't allowed to say that. Like,
okay.
Someone walked in 5 minutes before you closed wanting something dude, it didn't matter. You had to do it. So as kind of wild as it was back then, I learned a lot of different styles. It forced me to. And I think that's, I am grateful for that now, because I see even within my style, I put so many elements of these little pieces that I learned from doing different things, from doing a portrait, from doing a traditional thing or Japanese thing, doing a new school thing. And then all of a sudden, they kind of, it's like you're doing your own little version of all these things. It's like a great music that's like, oh, you're taking all these little pieces, and then it's you.
It's coming together. Yeah. That's
so I'm not, I enjoyed any of that. As far as body parts, I work on so many big, large scale things, full legs, full arms, backs, full fronts. So, there's definitely different parts of the body that are physically more challenging. If you get into areas like, say, if we're on the stomach or something, and it's a stretchier area, like, I'm going to have to physically stretch and work a little harder. I might be standing and hunched over doing it for hours that way. So there's that physical part where, yes, that gets harder. But again, over the years, you learn how to do that. That's going to be harder than if you're working on top of someone's forearm and it's a nice, tight, easy skin. I get to sit straight up in my chair and do it. So there's definitely parts of when I'm working large scale things where it's like, oh, this part's going to kick my butt a little today physically, or I go home and my hands are kind of hurting or my back hurts, and it's like, yeah, I earned my money today, and then so it's a little easier. But as far as challenging on the art side, and again, I think if you're actually trying to push each piece to be really great and the best you can do, they all should be challenging. If I sit down and draw something in a couple of minutes, sure, but it means I probably drew it the way I have drawn it before, or in a thing I'm very confident, oh, I've done this, I know the outcome. But if I go, oh, what if I draw this in a different way, and I have a different perspective, a different light source, or multiple light sources, or different, angles, and you go, yeah, I never usually do that. And then all of a sudden, it's a whole different thing. Just like if I hold my hand up flat like this, you go, okay, there's a hand, but if I go like this, it's much more dynamic. So it's like, how are you going to draw this pose of how you're looking at it? As no one can see this, but I'm moving my hand around.
Yeah, I get it.
So if you're thinking that way as an artist, you're going to go, each one will be challenging. And of course, the bag of tricks you learn every time you draw something in a different way like that, you conquer this new angle, this new perspective, this new thing. So of course you
draw on that
faster and faster with that, but you're still challenging, what's the composition, what's going on, the dynamics of it, the colors, how are you going to create depth to it, how are you going to do some of these things that make a softness and depth to it, but it hold up over time with tattooing as well, which can be a tough thing, because unlike a canvas or a piece of paper or something, it's on someone's skin that's aging naturally. It's getting beat up by the sun and elements. So there are things that are kind of tried and true, what holds well with skin and what doesn't. And there's those gray areas if you can do it the right way, and maybe the way you apply it, the way you maybe do multiple layers or use certain types of needles with lining certain things with colors and with lines without, to get different effects. But also, how does it hold up for the big picture? Because a lot of people
10-15 years down the line,
right, and a lot of that you really don't know until you've tattooed for a long time, because something you experimented and tried 15 years ago, and then you get to see again, you go, oh, that orange definitely got much softer than
it was when you left.
Yeah, or much softer than this dark blue did or something. And you start to go, all right, even within these light colors, maybe I need to layer some very deeper colors to build that contrast so it holds up.
Interesting.
So yeah, there's a lot of things like that go into tattooing. So it's this weird mix of art, your art ability, which I think is number one. How are you going to tattoo something great if you don't draw? Like, if you're not a good artist at something, if you're not pushing. And so many people try to skip that with tattooing. Just want to get into tattooing. And it's like, you're missing the whole art side of it first. So if you have the art ability and then you learn the physical ability of tattooing, how to use the tattoo machines and physically tattoo someone. And if you keep pushing yourself with those two things, I noticed for myself over the years, it's just been my art ability goes up a little bit and my tattoo ability goes up a little bit. And it keeps doing the seesaw thing of more and more, because every time you know what to do and how to draw it and how this texture is going to be, how this light's going to reflect, then when you're tattooing, you go, oh, this is where that should be. And then you get to create new little techniques with tattooing to match your art ability.
This is so much deeper than I ever imagined.
It can be. And again, you might sit down with someone that just is like total opposite and is like, I want to do the things off the wall, and I line it and I color it and they're gone,
Wow.
So again, there's so many different things, but this is my approach, and this is Lucky Bird's, what it was built off of,
right.
And what I look for in the artists and the people that work here too that want to do more, But yeah, it's really exciting. So again, they're all challenging if you challenge yourself with it. I mean, but everything in life, right? I mean,
it's true.
Like I said, I can sit down on a guitar and play the same 3 chords I played 20 years ago, or we can push it and try to do something harder, So yeah, that part's fun and challenging, but it also keeps you into tattooing, because it's this weird thing. And sorry if I'm rambling, but there's a relationship within it. Like any hobby or any passion or any career, you have to keep that relationship exciting, or people do start to take little shortcuts or not try as hard and stuff, right? And you go, oh, well, that's good enough. So you have to find a way to keep yourself intrigued by it and pushing yourself with it, which can be tough when you've drawn some for other people and tattooed, it's 20 years.
Sounds like it's the way that's worked for Lucky Bird for
you got to keep pushing.
Years.
Yeah, you got, and it's a mentality, I think, of wanting to keep being a little better. But when you are and you try something new, it's exciting. And
where's the most painful spot to get tattooed on a body?
Everyone's different, I think.
Really?
Yeah. But there's some definite, everyone kind of can agree on some things like elbows and knees and necks, stuff like that.
The thin skin places.
But I try not to open my mouth and say what doesn't hurt too much to people, because every time you do, your foot's in your mouth and it's the opposite for the person. You'll say, oh, maybe I'm doing a whole arm or something. I'm like, oh man, over by the elbow or inside the arm is definitely a little worse than the top of the forearm.
Right.
And then you end up tattooing someone and they're dying on the top of the forearm and they're fine on the elbow. And you're like, well, for me, sorry, man. So everyone's different, but they all hurt, obviously. Some spots are worse than others. And, but a weird thing that you mentally get yourself prepared because the outcome's what you want to. It's kind of surprising what you'll
sort of like childbirth.
Right. You envision, you're like, no way, how would you ever do that? But you do it because you know, like, you're going to get this beautiful thing.
Let's do that again.
Right, and you're right, exactly. People, they might sit here sometimes, they're like, oh man, this sucks, this is horrible. And then they get up and look at me and are like, I love it. And like, when can I book another one? You know, it's like.
Well, I'll tell you, as we start to wrap up, I want to talk about the other week you had a fundraiser. And this whole overturning of Roe v. Wade came out of pretty much out of nowhere. I mean, I never thought in my life I would ever see that happen. And
Right.
I mean, through sort of the world upside down with women's rights to abortion and everything else. And on September 10th, you had an abortion access event and fundraiser. And I mean, it was a pretty wild success.
Yeah, it was great. It was really awesome. A few of the guys that work here, or guys and women, I should say, brought it to me and the manager, Scott, and wanted to, like, hey, how can we kind of do something for this? Which was really awesome. So we all worked as a team and kind of ran with that idea. And we have some stuff we do every now and then that we just call flash events, that we'll pick a theme. Sometimes they're fun ones, like, you know, a Halloween one, Friday 13th or something like that. And we'll all draw, which is kind of funny, come full circle, that flash art I talk about in the beginning.
Right. Pumpkins.
Yeah, that, like in the beginning of when we first had started tattooing in the shops, and it was just wall art on the wall to pick. We'll actually do some of those, but we custom design them just for that day so people can walk in and pick things. So we're kind of paying homage to the old ways a little, but in a very custom way that we drew these and painted them, and they're for this specific event that we do. And after that day, you know,
they're done.
Yeah. So we kind of do that every now and then just for a fun thing. And we've, over the years, have built that up where people wait hours before we open to try to be as close in line and get in, and you know they'll be down from the main shop all the way to this past this private one, and which is awesome. You know, the first few times you go, it's like throwing a party. I hope someone shows up. How's it going to be? And you pull up, and it's like there's no way we can tattoo all these people. Like, which is so like awesome and humbling that they'll actually care enough to do that and want to. So with some of these things, like we did one a few months ago to raise money for Arundel County libraries as well. So we kind of used what we did with that, since we've had such a good turnout with that, where it's like, all right, we'll do this and we'll create all these designs, you know, specific to this event, and we'll pump it like that. But the last couple of times we've done even more, where we had food trucks.
Right.
We had a food truck there. Dominic Fragman, which one of my oldest, greatest friends growing up, and by far one of the best musicians I know.
He's a one-man band.
Yeah, he's just insane. And whatever he's playing in front of people, he's a million times better too. Like, this is so people can at least take it in and listen. Yeah, we had a donut coffee thing. Some of the beneficiaries came out. Yeah, and a couple hundred people, and it was just lined up and packed, and it was really awesome. So yeah, we use that where people want to get tattooed. It might, in this case, this might be the reason they got it, like you asked earlier. And it's like, I feel strong about this. I want to kind of
solidarity.
I'm
in on it.
Like, have my badge on this. So we do that, and then to make an event, you know, because we realize like people always get here hours before in the morning to wait. We started going, we should get food trucks, and so people have music. So Dominic was here playing music before we were open. We had food trucks before we were open, coffee, donuts, so people could enjoy being out
as
there.
As opposed to just standing.
Right, because in the beginning, it's just like, oh, I didn't know people were going to come here 4 hours before, man. They must have been so bored, you know. So we did that, and kind of used that formula and our reach with those things to get a lot of people here. And, you know, the result was unbelievable and really awesome and positive, and everyone just was great. And we had... you know, everyone all the artists here worked really hard. We had some friends come help out that were artists too. And, yeah, everyone did an awesome job, and it definitely wasn't just me by any means. It was the whole shop. It was, you know, the manager, Scott, and then put in a ton, which, you know, you've talked to him.
Yeah.
Everyone put in a ton. The front people getting that to work when you got that many people in lines. And I mean, it can get kind of crazy, but everyone did an awesome job, and we raised quite a bit of money. Actually, I think we raised over $8,600. Yeah, and I think there's a couple hundred people here. I think it was 150 people signed up to get tattooed. Unfortunately, we couldn't get to everyone because we got to hold our quality and you can't rush things. But we've been slowly kind of reaching back to some of the people and trying to squeeze them in our schedules just to get them in since they waited and stuff.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, 8,600. We split that even between MCASA and the Baltimore Abortion Fund, and we just split that down the middle and donated half of that. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Well, I'll tell you the best way to keep in touch with this is you've got a newsletter. You can sign that up at your website at luckybirdtattoo.com.
Yep.
Get a consult if you're interested here. They're 2521 Riva Road, directly across from like Coons Ford and looking across the street. Yeah,
Coons Ford. Yep.
Just before the festival at Riva if you're coming off of 665. And I've learned an awful lot, man. I'm digging your artwork on that.
Thanks so much.
The thing, it's the one over your shoulder there. It looks a little Harley Quinn-ish.
Yeah, actually, I just worked on her yesterday.
It was funny, but we were speaking with Parry Chotipradit.
Yep.
Did I get it right?
Yep, Parry Chotipradit.
Okay,
Chotipradit. Lucky Bird Tattoo. Thank you so much for taking your time on a Sunday to talk to me.
Absolutely.
This is great, and congratulations on all these years of doing this. I mean, from cleaning gutters to, to owning the place. And I encourage everybody to take a look at the website because they've got all the different artists are laid out on there with the types of work that they do, and whether they're booked up, whether you possibly can get an appointment very quickly, which I think certainly speaks to the success of your business as well as to the quality of the artists that you have when they're like, we can't get you in until what's your December look like? Which is, it's a good problem.
Yeah, and we always try to work people in, and actually a couple of artists over the last handful of months to try to accommodate some of the people that wanted smaller things came with the idea of offering a walk-in day on Fridays so they could get some smaller people in that didn't have to wait. If you wanted a one letter, you didn't have to wait months and months to get it. So we try to offer that a little bit now too, which has been great. So that's another little thing that we recently kind of have been doing, and a couple of the guys at the shop have
neat. Lucky Bird Tattoo. Parry, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. This was great. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this week's Local Business Spotlight. Please make sure to visit eyeonannapolis.net for all your local news, events, and opinion. And in case you haven't already, please subscribe to the Eye on Annapolis Daily News Brief, where we bring you all the day's local news direct to your phone, tablet, or computer in about 10 minutes. It comes to you at 6 a.m. every Monday through Friday, and you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.